Welcome back, Gothamites. If you're new here, I'm London, aka History of the Batman. There's a lot going on outside. You can hear the football team going, and then there's just a lot of noise. So if you do hear some type of noise in the background, that's not me talking to you about Batman. I already apologize. I'm gonna edit as best as I can, but this is just a preface before you jump into this video. So, Batman is no stranger to the big screen. For many, this was their first introduction to the Batman character before discovering comics and all of that. So, Batman on the big screen is rather sentimental to many fans. For today's video, we'll be ranking the live-action Caped Crusaders who have graced the silver screen over the last 75 years. We'll be ranking the 8 actors who have portrayed Bruce Wayne and Batman on film, based on the accuracy of their personas and adjacent to the eras that their films were originally released in theaters, and name some comics and creators that have influenced their individual Batman. This means we will not be highlighting any animated Batman, animated films, or Batman that have been solely on TV. But before we jump into this very common Batman fanboy argument, why don't you subscribe to this channel so you can become a part of this wonderful Gothamite community. Okay, so let's begin with number 8, and that is George Clooney in 1997's live-action film Batman and Robin, which was directed by Joel Schumacher. Now, the one thing that all of these actors do have in common that have portrayed the Caped Crusader is that they are all great actors. Really, this ranking isn't based on their acting ability, it's more everything else that you can think of. So of course George Clooney is a fantastic actor. That is not the reason why he's at number 8. For many people who have given a negative review about George Clooney's Batman or Batman and Robin entirely, it is due to the tone of the film, the aesthetics, and the script. For tone, looking at the 1997 film, the Batman seen in comic books at the time, from artists like Norm Brayfogle to Kelly Jones, and even looking at the character on TV at the time within the Batman animated series, this illustrated a dark and gritty interpretation of the character. Whereas Clooney's portrayal within this film drew on a Batman that was influenced heavily on the Silver Age of DC Comics within the 1960s. And the Batman and his mythology drawn by artists from Dick Sprang to Carmine Infantino. Even Uma Thurman's Poison Ivy drew from her debut in Beware of Poison Ivy from 1966. An homage to the campy era of Batman is always great in my book. But for many in 1997, just years after Tim Burton's 1992 smash hit, which presented a very gothic and dark Batman, it didn't sit well or match with the Batman that fans were familiar with or enjoyed over the last several years. Then there's factors like Nipplegate, Bane's lack of vocabulary, which me, who loves Bane, really didn't appreciate, and Mr. Freeze's punny existence left fans not thrilled with how the mythos was presented on the big screen. While George Clooney's portrayal of the Caped Crusader has the most negative commentary, I suppose, on this list, in 1997, for a 7-year-old, this movie was so much fun. And it's still a fun watch even now, especially if you're watching it within the proper context of celebrating 1960s Batman. Number 7 is Robert Lowry in 1949's Batman and Robin, directed by Spencer Gordon Bennett, the second actor to portray Batman on the big screen in the character's history. The 15-chapter black and white serial, Batman and Robin, follows Lowry's Batman and Johnny Duncan's The Boy Wonder as they try to stop the electrifying villain named the Wizard. While it is clear that Robert Lowry's Batman was influenced by the current Golden Age comics at the time, from writers such as co-creator Bill Finger to Justice League creator Gardner Fox, the film itself suffered many production problems, and some instances that simply didn't make sense for Batman. For example, there were some times when the bat signal would shine in the middle of the day, and if you read any comic, you know that the bat signal is supposed to be on just at night to give the best effect. The bat suit for Batman and Robin the Boy Wonder's costume were very poorly fitted. It's not very handy or comfortable for fighting bad guys. And their utility belt wasn't a utility belt at all. It had no pouches and it was just a regular belt. However, in one scene, Batman actually pulls out an entire huge blowtorch to take down a door. Robert Laurie is number 7 on our list, more so because the Columbia Pictures film was unfortunately very poorly produced and it lost the feel of a Batman movie. But I do recommend you watch Robert Laurie's Batman and Robin. You can probably watch the entire 15-chapter series here on YouTube. So just type that in and watch it for a few hours. It's fun and it's history. Okay, number 6 is Val Kilmer in 1995's Batman Forever, directed by Joel Schumacher. Kilmer's criticisms are somewhat similar to George Clooney's because Batman Forever was the next Batman film right after Tim Burton's 1992 Batman Returns, which, if you've watched both, has a completely different vibe. But ironically, Schumacher's lighter interpretation of Batman was due to the fact that Batman Returns was so dark that it wasn't marketable to a younger demographic, and so it wasn't as financially successful for the studio. It seems, however, between the Burtonverse and the current TV show Batman the Animated Series, Batman fans enjoyed the dark within The Dark Knight, and Batman Forever almost came off as a parody on the mythos presented in the early 1990s. Although Tommy Lee Jones's Two-Face was influenced by stories such as 1990's Eye of the Beholder by Andrew Helfer, it was Val Kilmer's Bruce Wayne and Batman that fans weren't necessarily fond about. It seemed that Kilmer's exaggerated, brooding nature didn't feel as authentic and sent mixed signals to the audience, considering Two-Face and Riddler's very comedic personalities, especially since Jim Carrey's primary influence was Frank Gorshin's Riddler from the 1966 live-action TV series Batman. But if you watch deleted scenes that are very easy to find here on YouTube, Val Kilmer had some pretty deep moments as Bruce Wayne thinking about his role as Batman within Gotham City. Of course, as we know, some of the good stuff just doesn't make it past the cutting room floor. And considering Schumacher originally wanted to adapt Frank Miller's Batman Year One, it seems that the tone was already confusing from the get-go. So number 5 is Ben Affleck in 2016's Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, directed by Zack Snyder. Cue in all the thumbs down from angry Snyderites. Now, Affleck's Batman is probably the easiest to see all of the comic book influences that came into creating this Dark Knight. In particular, Frank Miller's Batman The Dark Knight Returns, and even Geoff Johns' Justice League, Snyder's following film in 2017, Justice League. Even his fighting style is very reminiscent of the Batman within the Batman Arkham video game franchise, which is great and why he's a little bit high on our list. But to everyone else who doesn't know what The Dark Knight Returns is, or who don't read comics, which, let's face it, that's about 85% of moviegoers, and that percentage is very, very generous. To the casual superhero fan, he just seems like a very seasoned vigilante within Gotham City, whose motivations to fight Superman were easily swayed one way or another. And if you do read Batman comics, any comic, pick a comic, you know that this character is based on logic and using his head to plan out anything that he sets out to do. Logical is prepping your armored bat suit and having tons of your very powerful enemy's weakness on hand to gain the upper hand. Not logical is deciding that your enemy is now your new best friend and inspiration to your own crusade after learning that your guys' moms have the same first name, triggering you into obsessing over guilt that you have been harboring over the past 40 years. Visually, Ben looks great considering the source material. Yet the growth that he experienced within the third act of this film carried over into Snyder's Justice League, and it just didn't seem as authentic as maybe it would have been if it grew over the last 2 or 3 following films instead of 75% of one film. And since we don't know exactly what his future is as our current Caped Crusader of cinema, it would be nice if he stayed as Batman because Ben Affleck is a great actor, and for fans who are so excited about every single Batman film coming out, you want these films to have lots and lots of quality. Number 4 is Lois Wilson in 1943's Batman, directed by Lambert Hillier. Wow, that's loud. I'm so sorry. It's so loud. They're in the fourth quarter, from what I can hear very clearly. So hopefully it'll be over soon. The first actor to portray Batman on the big screen, Lois Wilson's Batman and Douglas Croft's Robin fought against the evil Dr. Dacca. This film is influential in many ways, from the introduction to the concept of the Batcave and the grandfather clock as an entrance to the Batcave, to giving us the now standard aesthetic for Alfred Beagle, who turned Alfred Pennyworth, portrayed by William Austin. Even 75 years later, Alfred has looked the same. Even though the Batmobile was just a simple Cadillac with no bat features, thanks to a very low budget, and the villain was racially insensitive because 1943, Wilson's portrayal of this character matched well with the Golden Age persona in stories from Detective Comics and the very new solo book, Batman. Overall, what Wilson's Batman brought was very influential, not just to the future of the character on the big screen, but also to his mythology in the source material of comic books. Okay, number 3 is Christian Bale in the Dark Knight trilogy from 2005 to 2012, directed by Christopher Nolan. For many Batman fans that I have talked to over the years, Christian Bale's Batman was their first introduction to the character. And that just shows you a lot of my demographic on Instagram, apparently. This is not surprising. I mean, Christopher Nolan, first of all, is a wonderful filmmaker. And his 2005 film, Batman Begins, his 2008 film, The Dark Knight, and his 2012 film, The Dark Knight Rises, are some of the best modern interpretations of Batman in cinema, and probably across all visual media. And there are so many comics that laid out the foundation of the characters and the film's plots. For Batman Begins, it had comics from Frank Miller's Batman Year One, and of course Dennis O'Neill's The Man Who Falls. In The Dark Knight, Alan Moore's Batman the Killing Joke and Andrew Helfer's Eye of the Beholder influenced characters such as the Joker and Harvey Dent, aka Two-Face. And The Dark Knight Rises saw major influences from arcs such as Batman No Man's Land and Batman Nightfall. But why is Christian Bale's Batman a good Batman? It's not just the great writing and the outstanding portrayal of the Rogues Gallery, but Bale's persona and how he presented Bruce Wayne and Batman fits so well within Nolan's realistic interpretation of this mythology. From presenting the no guns and no killing rule that runs throughout the modern Batman mythos, to facing heartache and even his own mortality, Bale's Batman was very three-dimensional and a breath of fresh air after an 8-year hiatus caused by Schumacher's Batman in Batman and Robin from 1997, our number 8 pick on this list. Okay, we are down to our top 2. And number 2 is Michael Keaton in 1989's Batman and 1992's Batman Returns, directed by Tim Burton. Once stories like Alan Moore's Watchmen and Frank Miller's Batman The Dark Knight Returns popularized the adult graphic novel, Batman returned to his gothic roots in comics. In order to transition this interpretation from comics to film, and away from the campiness that was seen in 1966's Batman, a new Dark Knight had to hit the big screen, which saw Tim Burton's 1989 film Batman, starring Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson as respectively Batman and the Joker, which is a match made in heaven, let's face it. The film wasn't just a huge financial success and an introduction to the modern formula of marketing for Hollywood films, but Keaton's take on Bruce Wayne's complexities and his brooding Batman gave life to a whole new modern caped crusader. And for many, similar to Christian Bale, Michael Keaton's Batman was their first introduction to the character that made them fall in love with the comics and TV and video games, everything. And even almost 30 years later, Keaton's Batman is perhaps one of the best interpretations of the character in his almost 80-year history. Our number 1 pick for the best live-action Batman is Adam West in 1966's film Batman, directed by Leslie H. Martinson. Now, between Adam West and Michael Keaton, the spot for number 1 can almost be interchangeable considering how Both of them have been so influential in Batman's overall history. But without Adam West's Batman, which began on TV in 1966, the character's jump from DC Comics comic book character to pop culture icon wouldn't have happened. And who knows if Batman would be as popular as he is today without the TV show and the 1966 film. Although some don't like the light-hearted Bright Knight in comparison to, let's say, Christian Bale or Ben Affleck's interpretation of the character, Adam West's Batman, Gotham City, and the very colorful Rogues Gallery was stripped right from the comics to the small screen and eventually the big screen. Batmania happened once Adam West and Burt Ward became the dynamic duo, and ever since, Batman is easily one of the most merchandised, and popular DC icons in the canon. For those reasons alone, West's Batman is arguably the best Batman because of what his portrayal did to the character. Not just rising comic book sales and taking Batman out of almost obscurity, but his great presence across all visual media. But no matter which Batman is your personal favorite interpretation, each brings something unique to the big screen and are all part of the persona's almost 80-year history. Thanks so much for watching the best live action Batman ranked. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a bat thumbs up. Let me know in the comments below which is your favorite Caped Crusader and if you agree or disagree with this list. It's okay if you disagree, it won't hurt my feelings. So before I leave this video, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Los Angeles Comic-Con, which is coming up at the end of this month from October 26th through the 28th at the Los Angeles Convention Center in Los Angeles, California. I am happy to share my involvement with Los Angeles Comic-Con. I will be moderating 3 different panels, which are all going to be on Saturday, October 27th. The first will be a discussion with the cast of Steven Universe. That is one of my favorite shows, and I even hosted the panel last year. So if you are interested in watching that Steven Universe panel, I'll link it in the description below because it is on my YouTube channel. And that panel will actually be on Hot Topic Main Stage, which I am very excited about. My second panel will also be on the Hot Topic main stage, but it'll be a one-on-one talk with writer and illustrator Skottie Young. I absolutely love his work, from his Marvel's Avengers to his Image Comics I Hate Fairyland. And my third panel will be a Batman one. It is called Batman After 80 Years, a Retrospect, and I will be sitting with Chris Burnham, who is an illustrator on books such as Batman Incorporated and Batman and Robin, and writer Kyle Higgins, who is on books from Batman Gates of Gotham to Nightwing to Batman Beyond. We will be discussing Batman's visual evolution over the last 80 years and their particular work on the Caped Crusader. So if you will be in the Los Angeles area or want to attend LA Comic-Con, I will link in the description below where you can buy tickets. I hope to see some of you Gothamites at the con. I love meeting you guys in person, and I always have such a fun time at LA Comic-Con. As always, my social media is all linked in the description below, so go give it a follow and become a Gothamite. Check out my comic book reviews for ComicCon, and of course, please subscribe to this channel so you can become a part of this awesome Batman community. It would mean so much to me. Thanks so much for watching, and we will have more History of the Batman soon, right here on YouTube. Remember, Gothamites, it's all about peace, love, and Batman. Bye.